Johansson. You're the member of the Economic Sciences Prize Committee. Please tell us a little bit more about this year's prize. What kind of research have you awarded?
Yeah, so generally the research is, the common denominator is research on consumption. And more specifically, data's contributions are divided up to three core components. One has to deals with the so-called demand system, trying to understand what consumption choices people make as function of prices of these goods and their income and various other potential important factors. The other important contribution deals with more thinking about aggregate relationship between aggregate consumption and aggregate income, and where he has shown that in order to understand these patterns in the data in a better way, we need to start from the individual and start to understand individual behavior to then aggregate up to the national level. And finally, has done very important work on measuring and understanding living standards and poverty in developing countries. And among his many contributions are developing tools to measure poverty in cases where we don't have very good price and quality data on the goods that people are consuming.
When did he do his most important research about this?
Yeah, the research on demand system was done in the late 1970s, and much of his work on the aggregate relationship between income and consumption was done in the latter part of the 1980s. And from the 90s forward, he has done a lot of work on developing economics.
And he's still an active researcher?
He's still a very active researcher, very much so.
So we have more findings to look forward to?
I probably think so.
Okay. Has the politicians anything to learn from this kind of research?
Yeah, I think you as policymakers, you have a lot to learn from this research. I think all three of his core contributions have a direct link to policy. So demand system is a tool you can do to evaluate different types of economic policy proposals, like changes in taxes. His work on aggregate income and consumption, is an important issue when it comes to stabilization policy and to understand the correct type of actions you should take. His insight of understanding individual behavior is hugely important. Finally, his work on poverty has had a large impact how you actually go about to measure poverty in many developing countries.
It's a prize about consumption. Has the ordinary consumer anything to learn about this, like you and me?
Yeah, I think we do. First of all, I think we do because we care about the welfare of poor individuals, of poor households in developing countries. And in order to do anything about that, we need to measure and see how many they are and where they live and what you can do about it. But of course, also when we think about governments changing various economic policies, I think it's important for us to know how it will affect our welfare.
Was it hard to make the decision this year?
This is only my second year in the committee, so I don't have so much to compare with. But it's a long process. But I think in the end, we were very much in agreement that this was a very good choice.
How did the laureate react when he heard the news?
Yeah, I know him a little bit. I thought he was in a bit of a state of shock. He is usually a very elegant a speaker that answers in long sentences, but the replies we got were very short. But I think he was very, very happy.
Extreme poverty has decreased in the world today. Can Angus Wheaton research help us to have the decrease to continue further on?
Yeah, I think primarily Angus' work on poverty is how you measure it in the best possible way, and I think measuring poverty well is important to be able in order to evaluate what policies works and what do not. And here he has made a huge impact. I think if you look at the data, there's nothing that tells us that this reduction in absolute poverty will not continue. But of course, we never know.
And finally, has the laureate written some kind of book for the big audience that we can read if you're interested in this topic?
Yes, just a year or two ago, he came out with a book called The Great Escape, if I remember correctly, which talks a little bit about his own life, but also more generally about patterns we observe in the data and long-run development in income and poverty and welfare. That I think is a very good book to read.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.